Okay, so let's continue our discussion on the Bill of Rights. Today we're going to start with the Sixth Amendment. So yesterday we did the Fifth Amendment. I'm sorry, Monday we did the Fifth Amendment. And we did all the parts. It's all about protecting the rights of the accused. Now we're going to talk Sixth Amendment, which continues with protection of the rights of the accused. And a lot of this is where, between the two, where we get the Miranda rights that you guys know about. So the symbol we used in class was tapping a wristwatch, because it's a right to a speedy and public trial by jury. The right to know what you're charged with. They can't just put you on trial and not tell you what crime you're accused of. The right to confront the witnesses against you, and the right to be represented by an attorney. So this is where we get, you have the right to an attorney, you have the right to all the things that they say in the Miranda rights. The Seventh Amendment is similar, but it's about civil court. So civil court is where I'm suing somebody for something, but it's not a crime. In a civil lawsuit, when this was written, $20, lots and lots of money. So that's why it was set at 20. But it can be for more, but it can't be for less. You can't sue somebody for $5. In a civil lawsuit where the value being argued is over $20, you have the right to a trial by jury. That means that you can bring a lawsuit against somebody and you can ask to have a jury listen to the evidence and decide in favor of you or the other person. No trial decided by a jury can be re-examined in a court of law without following the rules. So I'm sure you've heard of appeals and how if you go to court and you lose your case, if there are rules that you can follow that say they should take a look at it again, you can appeal that to a higher court, and it just has to keep going up. That's how we get cases that end up in front of places like the Supreme Court of the United States. We've had a case that it starts at the local level, and then it goes up to the district level and the state level, and eventually it gets up to the Supreme Court. But that's only if it fits certain rules. You can't do it just because you don't like that you lost. You have to have a reason that fits a legal definition. The Eighth Amendment, back to our criminal rights, the rights of the accused. You have the right not to have excessive bail and the right not to receive cruel and unusual punishments. So the cartoon that I picked for this is a person who's like, he stole some money and he's caught. Police officer catches him and says, hey, you can't do that. When he goes to court, they set the bail at $500 million. Well, nobody's going to be able to make that. And you can look at the picture, it's indicating he stole a little bit of money. And then giving him 300 years in prison. Well, that's way more than a lifetime. So what you find is that our justice system says that if a person is charged with a crime, their bail has to match the crime they're charged with. So if let's say I go out and I steal a car, my bail can't be $1 million for stealing a car. But if I go out and kill somebody, my bail is probably going to be around $1 million. You also can't be sentenced to death for stealing that car because that doesn't fit the crime. So our Eighth Amendment was designed to protect us from people who might be doing something just to seek revenge or just because they don't like us. They have to follow certain rules and laws. Then we're going to get to our last two amendments. The Ninth Amendment just says that, hey, there's going to be rights listed, or there's going to be rights that people have that are not listed in the Constitution. The Founding Fathers understood that as time went on, we would end up with more rights needing to be defined. So instead of trying to write out everything they could possibly think of, they just said, hey, you still have some rights. We just didn't write them all down. So the example I have here is, of course, someone saying, I get to fly a plane. They're saying, well, no, you can't. Well, yes, I can, because there's nothing that says I can't. So the Constitution does address rights that are not spelled out. This is how we get rights to music. This is how people have, the copyright laws. This is how we have rights to expanding the right to vote. Because if you remember at the beginning, the right to vote was only to white male property owners. We're going to change that and expand it to women. We're going to change that and expand it to African Americans, things like that. So our rights are not limited by what's in the Constitution. The 10th Amendment says that if it's not specifically given to the federal government, then it belongs to the states and the people. This is this is part of that whole federalism thing. So in federalism, you have a central government, but they don't hold all the power. Because if they held all the power, we'd be back in a monarchy or some sort of tyrannical thing that we were trying to get away from. Unless it says it in the Constitution, then the federal government is not in charge of it. The states are in charge of that. So if we break it down, the Bill of Rights can be grouped like this. You have your First Amendment, protects all of our individual rights and the minorities from the majority rule. This doesn't necessarily mean minorities like African American, Hispanic, that kind of thing. What they're talking about is minorities like lower populations or smaller states from the larger states. The concern was that if somebody had an increased population, the majority would be in charge, and they didn't want that. Amendments 2 through 4 are going to focus on mistakes that were made during the Revolutionary War. So we're going to go back and we're going to look at those. 2, that's about the right to bear arms. 3 was the quartering thing. You can't make me keep soldiers in my house. And 4 was about search and seizure and having to have a warrant. Those were all mistakes that the British Crown made and led us to the Revolutionary War. Amendments 5 through 8 guarantee rights to people charged with crimes. You can argue that 4 also kind of goes with that too, but it was more connected to the Revolutionary War. This is where we get our Miranda warning, which is the picture I've got for you there. Those are your rights. There was a lawsuit that had to happen because a gentleman was not read his rights, and he sued. And he said, hey, I didn't know that I didn't have to confess. I didn't know that I got to have a lawyer. I just wasn't aware of my rights under the Constitution. And they had to throw out his conviction and start from scratch. So now police have to say the Miranda warning so that people understand what their rights are. And then 9 and 10 maintain the rights of states and citizens. So that's all about power to the people. All right, use this to answer the questions in the Google form. Remember, you can go back through the video and you do not have to just try and remember it from memory. Next week, we're going to talk about the principles of the Constitution and how it's broken down.